Welcome back to NerdVine, friends. As a follow-up to a couple episodes ago, we talked about champagne, and then I want to wrap up France. Today we will be talking about Crémant. There's not a ton to discuss about the wine itself, so we will double task today's video to also talk about French wine law. And then we will be done with the big topics of France. So obviously there's more, but I get easily bored, and I don't have Sauterne on hand, and all the other reasons. So today, grab a glass or two, and let's talk about bubs and laws. So Crémant is sometimes called like the hidden gem of sparkling wine, and it definitely deserves some attention. So in some ways, you can think about it as champagne's cousin, whether you think of it as the less refined cousin or maybe just the less snobby cousin, up to you and your vibes and tastes. I think both are great, of course. Somewhere in there's like a vi joke, but I'm just not with it enough today to make it, alas. Moving on. Okay, Crémant is a sparkling wine, and it is crafted using the traditional method, which we discussed, and it does have to spend time on the lees, 9 months minimum, but it does not come from the Champagne region. That's illegal. So it will not call itself Champagne. That's illegal. But it will express different unique characteristics depending on the region from whence it hails, and you'll usually know the region because it's almost always included in the name. So you'll get Crémant d'Alsace, which, you guessed it, is from Alsace, and tends to be kind of like Pinot Blanc heavy. Crémant de Loire from Loire, and this one will usually be Chenin Blanc heavy. Crémant de Bourgogne may be the most similar to Champagne because it has Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, but it throws in some Gamay from time to time, so there's your variation. And last but definitely not least is Crémant de Limoux, using largely Blanquette, which I know we've never discussed, also Chardonnay and Chenin Blanc. Of course, in addition to some flavor variety beyond what can be done with the different grapes, and I didn't actually name all the allowed varietals, just the primary ones, Crémant is nice because it's usually not as expensive as Champagne. In fact, it pretty much is never as expensive. So if you want your sparkles and you want them to be French and you don't want to break the bank, try Crémant. All right. I know that wasn't a lot, but hopefully it sated at least a little of your appetite to discuss a particular wine, because now we will get a bit technical talking about the intricacies of French wine law. So France is kind of known for strict regulations governing winemaking, labeling, regional designations. Let's talk a little bit about what you'll see on the labels and what it means. 20% of all French wine is called vin de France, literally wine of France. And basically this means not a lot of restrictions are in place here. So you can make like high yield vineyards, you get lots and lots of grapes, quality. You can use oak chips or staves to get oaky flavor in lieu of oak barrels. You can put the vintage on the label. You cannot put the specific place of origin on the label. That is, these wines aren't associated with any particular appellation. The next strictest level is IGP or Vin de Pays, sometimes abbreviated VDP, and this is about 30% of all French wine. So there are 74 delimited regions, and they will appear on the label, but fun fact, only 85% of the fruit must come from that stated region. So 15% could come from somewhere else entirely. And at first that actually might sound like a lot, but just wait till we get to the US and its law is like wild. Anyway, what else? You can also use hybrid grapes, and the wine can be labeled using the varietals or the types of grapes, but I don't believe it has to. Let's look at some examples. So this is, can I make this bigger? Ooh, there we go. All right, so Vin de Pays des Bouches du Rhône. So it's coming from, it's a Vin de Pays, it's coming from Rhône. It says it's Chardonnay, 1996 vintage, and then mise en bouteille au domaine just means it was, the juice was put into the bottle, it was bottled, there we go, where it says it was picked, basically. Next, we can see, all right, here we've got a 2008 vintage. This talks about the domaine, and this says Vin de Pays des Côtes de, where is this from? Gascogne. It does not appear to say the varietal, so I'm assuming that will be maybe on the back of the label. I don't actually have these bottles. Obviously, I pulled these images off the internet, and I'm just hoping no one sues me. And then if you want to talk about IDP, I mentioned and then didn't tell you, so it's Indication Géographique Protégée, which just means a protected geographic indication. Like, here's where it's from, and we protect that, basically. So French dry wine, Pays d'Oc is kind of like Pays de Vin, and then IGP, and it says all of that on your label. Okay, next up. The 50% that's left of French wine will all be AOC or AOP, Appellation d'origine contrôlée and Appellation d'origine protégée, respectively. For these wines, the boundaries from whence the literal grapes are picked are very strictly defined and regulated, whether that means it's the entirety of this particular village or it's from this one specific vineyard. The allowed viticultural practices within the area are regulated. So think about it like, do they permit irrigation, and if so, what type? How much yield is allowed per hectare? What methods do we allow for vine training? What are some of the minimum and maximum allowed alcohol volumes? I know some of this is kind of complicated, but just the idea is that it's all controlled and protected. Bad joke, I know. In addition to all of these restrictions on the viticultural practices, vinification or wine making is also subject to rules and regulations, namely aging requirements, how much residual sugar is allowed to be in the wine, and then related to the percentage of the grapes I talked about, pointing up like before, the percentage of grapes that must come from that stated region is 100%. So none of this 85, 100% of these grapes. And I have labels for this too, fret not. So let's look at, yes, okay, so here you can see, obviously this is a Burgundian wine and it says Appellation Bourgogne Contrôlée. So the controlled appellation of Burgundy. I'm pretty sure that's a Chardonnay. I'm looking at this backwards. And then this one, this is actually a great example. Thank you, winesearcher.com, where I got this. So these labels get kind of complicated, and I think I can make this bigger. So you have the winery name, the vintage, the village. Now here we talk about the appellation. So not only does it say Côte-du-Rhône village, but then it says Appellation Côte-du-Rhône village contrôlé, and then it talks about the grape varieties, which if you remember the Rhône one, we are not surprised it's Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre, and Vieux Carillon, and then mise en bouteille au domaine we talked about. So everything is on the labels. You just have to be able to decipher what it's telling you. Okay, so you see they, all right, to expound on the complications, each region can have its own distinctions. So let's use Burgundy as an example. You'll have the label for the regional appellation Bourgogne Contrôlée, right? And then if the winemaker wants to be like, hey, this came from a specific area in that appellation, and that area is special, then the village name, the village, will also take the place, it'll be on the label and it'll take the place of the actual appellation. So then you'll have like Appellation Gevrey-Chambertin Contrôlée. And I'm using Gevrey-Chambertin because it was the example for both my WSET and my CMS classes. Then, if you want to get even more specific, Gevrey-Chambertin will have a Premier Cru vineyards, and those, all right, they'll have Premier Cru vineyards and Grand Cru vineyards, and then the winemakers will make wines from those single specific vineyards, and you will know because they will tell you. So let's look at some more labels. And if I'm slightly distracted seeming, it's because my cats are absolutely losing it in the kitchen with me. So let us look at this Gevrey-Chambertin Premier Cru, and I partly picked this one because you can see it says 1ER, which is Premier. Well, it's actually Premier, not Premiere, but you'll hear it mispronounced a lot. So Premier Cru, and then Appellation Contrôlée appears down here, and then you'll see the mise en bouteille again. They're very proud of that, and I think it might be part of the rules. You can, however, also see it actually spelled out. So Appellation Gevrey-Chambertin Premier Cru Contrôlée. They put all of it in there so that you know where this wine is coming from, and they're like, oh, bragging rights. And then finally, so Gevrey-Chambertin is not going to be your Grand Cru. Your Grand Cru is just going to be Chambertin. It's very complicated. It's not actually complicated once you start to get the hang of it. Are you going to be okay back there? Crazy. Once you start to get the hang of it, this will all start to make a lot more sense. But the Chambertin, Grand Cru, Appellation Contrôlée, it all appears on the label. Now, here's the thing, right? A lot of this is for bragging rights. And it does tell you, like, this is where this wine came from. So if you're like, I really want this Grand Cru wine from this one vineyard, from this one maker, from this one place, whatever, you can find it using the label, which is really nice. But if someone were to say, if someone hands me a Grand Cru, obviously I'll be like ecstatic. Like, yeah, thank you very much. Let's be besties. But if someone hands me even like a vin de pays, but definitely if they hand me an AOC or an AOP, I will be ecstatic. You're not going to have an AOC or an AOP and be like, oh, I really wish I'd gotten the Premier Cru. This one sucks. That's not going to happen. There are so many rules and regulations in place, and honestly, the public is just going to, shame these people if they make a bad wine. So you're set getting any of these wines. I just want you to understand kind of what's going on with these labels. And frankly, if you get to the wine store and you're like, WTF, mate, what is this label saying? Take a picture, send it to me, and I will help you decipher that one too. We'll talk about labels for a lot of the different countries. We're just doing France now because I have these Crémants to drink. You can decipher a lot. Don't let the label dictate what you buy. That's kind of the point I'm getting at with that little ramble spiel. All right, so clear as mud? Great. We have at least scratched the surface of Crémant and navigated, some level of the labyrinth of French wine laws. I know it gets complicated, and I know I just said don't let the labels dictate what you buy. I like to think, though, that if nothing else, this just demonstrates how seriously embedded the tradition of winemaking is for French winemakers. When we discuss Australia, which is honestly quite some time from now, you will see a little bit of the flip side of getting kind of crazy with viticulture and vinification. And I think both are so great. You've got the tradition, you've got the sense of freedom, and in the wine world, we want both because we get such important wines from both of them. Okay, I'm going to pour my glass, give you a moment to like and subscribe. Seriously though, so today we are drinking this Crémant d'Alsace, mostly because I drank my Crémant de Limoux during the candy video. So that one was incredible, and was a Chardonnay Chenin Blanc Pinot Noir blend that was a whopping $20. Bubbles were creamy, bordering on delicate, because they're definitely there, but they dissipated really nicely. Also, you can see Appellation Crémant de Limoux Contrôlé, so it relates, everything relates. All right, so back to this Alsatian buddy here. So this one is 100% Chardonnay, which was shocking to me because, again, I'm just not a huge Chardonnay fan, and I loved it. Bubbles are super nice, not overly aggressive. I got a lot of dried apricot and banana bread on the first night. My partner got banana, and then when I said banana bread, he agreed, so good job. Way to keep the peace in the house. No, I'm kidding. Also, I opened this before today. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm practicing opening sparkling wines because I will have to open one for my next CMS test, and I have to do it in front of people, and I have to do it without making any noise, whatever. Kira told me to practice it with warm ones because they are more difficult to open without making the big popping noise. So I do open them warm and then chill them. Let's drink. Cheers. Ooh. I realized I just did the thing I usually do when I end the video. So if you're not watching anymore, oh well. Raise your hand if you're not here. But if you are still here, I think I get a little more of like a golden raisin. I know sometimes it's cheating to say grapes and raisins in wine, but I mean, they are made of grapes. My voice sounded really weird when I said that. Okay, back to the wine. I'd say it's still very much like a banana bread with a little bit of apricot. I must get a little bit of fig too, but not the super sweetness of all of those things. Just imagine if all of those things were somehow not sweet, but more on the savory side, the buttery side. Yes, okay. Not so much savory, but buttery. So think of very buttery banana nut bread with maybe some apricots in it. Whatever, it's delicious. Just go find this guy who was, I think, maybe 28. Yeah, $28, which I know is pushing it for some people, but save it for something special like being alive. And yeah, this is absolutely delicious. So 2018 Crémant d'Alsace banana bread. I'll see you next time.